June 19, 2019, just past midnight. Over the Strait of Hormuz, at 50,000 feet, an American surveillance drone is gliding silently. Its operator is sitting inside a container in the Nevada desert, thousands of miles away. Everything is routine until an Iranian commander gives the order to fire. Within seconds, a $130 million American drone will crash into the Sea of Oman. And just a few hours after that, President Trump will approve a military operation against Iran, jets are ready, ships are in position, war is literally 10 minutes away. Then one question changed everything. But first, we need to understand how we got to this point. Because what happened that night didn't come out of nowhere. It was the explosion of tension that had been building for months. In May 2018, the US withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal. This agreement had been negotiated during the Obama era and called for easing economic sanctions in exchange for Iran limiting its nuclear program. The Trump administration argued the deal was insufficient, pulled out, and began implementing a maximum pressure policy against Iran. What does that mean? Heavy economic sanctions. Iran's oil exports were driven down to nearly zero. The Iranian economy took a serious hit, and as you can probably guess, Tehran was not happy about it. By the spring of 2019, the Persian Gulf had turned into a powder keg. In May, 4 commercial tankers were targeted in sabotage attacks near the port of Fujairah. In early June, 2 more tankers were attacked in the Sea of Oman. The US announced that Iran was behind these attacks. Iran categorically denied it. Back-and-forth accusations, diplomatic tension, and military assets flooding into the region. The drone incident happened right in the middle of this atmosphere. Now let's talk about the platform that was hit, because this was no ordinary drone. According to the Pentagon's official statement, the platform that was struck was an RQ-4A Global Hawk. This thing is massive. Its wingspan is 131 feet, roughly the size of a Boeing 737. Its service ceiling is above 60,000 feet, and its price tag is somewhere between $130 and $180 million. It can stay airborne for over 30 hours. With the sensor package it carries underneath, it can monitor an area hundreds of miles wide in real time. The operational logic behind these drones is fascinating. The platform is controlled from thousands of miles away via satellite link. The operators sit at Creech Air Force Base in Nevada. You drop your kid off at school in the morning, run a reconnaissance flight over the Middle East in the afternoon, and come home for dinner in the evening. The nature of warfare has fundamentally changed. That night, this Global Hawk was on a routine surveillance mission in the Strait of Hormuz region. It was monitoring maritime traffic in the area and tracking Iranian military activity. An unarmed platform, just eyes and ears. And then Iran's Revolutionary Guard Air Defense Unit made its move. They launched a missile from the 3rd Khordad air defense system. This is a medium to long-range surface-to-air missile system that Iran claims is domestically produced. The missile found its target. The $130 million platform went down into the Sea of Oman. This is where the story gets really interesting, because the two sides tell completely different versions. The US position was clear. The drone was in international airspace. The Pentagon released the drone's coordinates and maintained that at the moment it was struck, it was outside Iranian airspace. It was flying over the Strait of Hormuz in airspace corresponding to international waters. Iran's claim was entirely different. Tehran said the drone had violated Iranian airspace. A Revolutionary Guard commander claimed the drone had been warned first, but didn't change its course. Iran announced they had recovered debris from the drone in their own waters and presented this as evidence. So what was the truth? Honestly, independent verification is nearly impossible. Both sides presented data supporting their own narratives, but the majority of international observers assessed that the radar data presented by the US was more convincing. Still, this remains a disputed point in the story. And actually, this ambiguity is exactly what made the situation so dangerous, because if the drone really was in international airspace, then Iran had carried out an unlawful attack on an American military asset, and that demanded a response. As the news reached Washington, the Pentagon kicked into gear. A state actor openly and deliberately striking an American military platform was an extremely serious matter. The National Security Council convened. There were hawks at the table. The National Security Advisor at the time, John Bolton, favored a hardline stance against Iran and saw this incident as an opportunity. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo also argued that a strong response was necessary. Military planning moved quickly. A target list was drawn up. Iranian radar stations, missile batteries, and specific Revolutionary Guard facilities were at the top of the list. The scope of the plan was a limited retaliatory operation, not a full-scale war, a proportional military response. But there was a reality everyone knew. Once you launch a missile at Iran, you can't control how Iran responds. The escalation risk was enormous. Aircraft carriers moved into position, fighter jets were prepped. B-52 bombers were positioned near the region. Tomahawk cruise missiles were programmed with target coordinates. The American war machine had started running at full power. And then that moment came. Thursday evening, June 20th, 2019. President Trump approved the operation. Jets were about to take off. According to some reports, they were already airborne. Missile operators on the ships were waiting for the fire command. According to Trump's own account, at the last minute, he asked one question: how many people would be affected? The generals answered, approximately 150, sir. And Trump paused. 150 human lives for an unmanned drone. For an incident where there was no one on board, where no American life was lost, was taking out 150 people a proportional response? About 10 minutes before the operation was set to begin, Trump gave the order to stand down. The jets turned back. The missiles were not fired. The war did not start. Trump later announced this on Twitter. He wrote that he found the response not proportionate. This statement surprised both his supporters and his critics. Some saw it as strategic maturity. Others interpreted it as a step back that damaged American deterrence. Regardless of which side you're on, it's hard to deny the weight of what happened that night. Within minutes, maybe seconds, a military conflict of a scale not seen in decades between the US and Iran could have begun, and nobody knew where it would stop. So what happened next? Instead of a military strike, the US activated the cyber option. Cyber operations were launched targeting Iran's missile control systems and the Revolutionary Guard's intelligence networks. It was an invisible, silent, but effective response. Another face of modern warfare. Additional sanctions followed as well. The Trump administration announced new sanctions targeting financial assets directly linked to Ayatollah Khamenei's office. The economic pressure intensified even further. But this incident raised the real big question. Think about it. If there had been an American pilot inside that drone, this story would have ended very differently. Retaliation would have been inevitable. No president could leave an attack on an aircraft carrying an American service member unanswered. But because no one was on board, a president was able to stop and say, 150 people isn't worth it for this. This is one of the most striking examples of how unmanned systems influence decisions about war. Losing a drone is categorically different from losing a pilot, and that difference that night was the difference between war and peace. On the other hand, there's something else to consider. Iran struck a $130 million American military asset and faced no direct military consequences for it. What message did that send to other actors in the region? Was deterrence weakened? Or did the US actually act more wisely by not getting dragged into a war? There are no easy answers to these questions, and historians will probably continue debating this for decades to come. The night of June 19th to 20th, 2019, the world stepped back from the edge of war. One drone, one missile, one commander-in-chief's question, and a 10-minute decision window. All the complexity of modern military aviation and geopolitics was compressed into those few hours. Wars don't always start with grand plans. Sometimes they can start with a debate over whether a drone's flight path was a few miles to the right or to the left. And sometimes, what stops a war isn't billions of dollars in weapon systems or complex diplomacy. It's a simple question. Perhaps it was the most expensive question in history. The answer was 150, and that number, 150, changed the fate of hundreds of thousands of people that night, because a war that started wouldn't have stopped at just those 150. The Strait of Hormuz would have shut down, oil prices would have skyrocketed, Iran's proxy forces across the region would have been activated. From Lebanon to Iraq, from Yemen to Syria, the entire Middle East could have gone up in flames. And maybe, just maybe, we'd be living in a very different world today.